When we talk about Secondhand September, it's important to highlight that this month asks us to commit to buying only secondhand or pre-loved clothing for an entire month, which on the surface might sound like a very simple challenge, but in reality, it encourages a deeper reflection on our consumption habits. And even as the sustainable fashion movement gains traction, I do want to note that it's ironic that there's also a rise of micro trends in fast fashion, and even within secondhand culture, I have noticed that we still find ourselves chasing the next big vintage find. We're still searching for items that signal taste, uniqueness, or relevance, and I do think that it's very much the same thing that we're doing in fast fashion or when we're buying trending items. So in this episode, I will be exploring Secondhand September to showcase our desire for something lasting and meaningful in midst of our shopping habits, in midst of fast fashion. And I will also be exploring the theory of timeless fashion within all of this discussion. So if you're new here, hi, I'm Ellie and welcome to Susty Talks. This is a community-centered podcast that sparks genuine conversations around ethical fashion, sustainable change, and intersectional solutions. And it's all about being an online space that drives positive change and empowers action, making sustainability more accessible and relevant to everyone. And this is a self-funded initiative. Supporting my efforts can mean buying vintage clothing on my eBay and on my Depop. And I'm also crafting Mexican artisanal denim collections to inspire upcycling and tell stories that challenge the mainstream narratives in the fashion industry. But can I say something about timeless fashion? I do think the idea of timelessness in clothing is a made-up concept. And I think it comes from white, Western, and elite standards that leave out other cultures and styles. And I think it also is used to signal class, taste, and power through consumer choices. So for example, when people say a blazer or like a trench coat or a little black dress is timeless, I think what they mean is that it's something that has been accepted by a system built on Eurocentric ideals. And it also assumes that it will always be needed and used despite these quick fashion trends that surround us. Also, I do want to note that I think it's really odd thinking. I think timelessness is odd thinking because our natural world, it depends on a constant rhythm of beginnings and ends, constant death and rebirth and birth and death. You know, like everything has cycles to it, like fall has to come to an end and then another season comes after that and then it just keeps repeating. And also I want to note that our style is always changing. I have changed my style so many times. I don't dress like I used to dress a year ago. I would never have worn this sweater in high school, and that was like 12 years ago. So I think it's just natural that we're always like adding and changing our wardrobe, and yet brands have somehow gotten this idea or angle to their business that they can sell us the idea of timelessness, and that it's actually like a very sane and safe investment on our part to make a conscious shopping decision. So I encourage you to first question timelessness and then further on question the idea of timeless fashion. And my bias and my perspectives are my own. You do not have to agree with me. The point of this podcast is to shape and like further evolve my own theories here. Just share it out, you know. I really do encourage you to question everything. Question my own theories if you want. I think it's natural if we disagree. And yeah, I just want to make the point that I believe nothing can escape time. So yeah, time doesn't escape anything. Like, for example, museums have tried their literal best to preserve items to the best of their ability. And major props for them for doing that. But to keep fashion items like truly preserved is a whole art form. Like, that's art. That is so much effort and so much patience and so much skill. And I don't dismiss that. That is not the point of this podcast. I do not dismiss people's efforts for keeping things preserved. I just feel that as humans, we're always evolving, meaning our bodies and our identities just naturally change with time and can even shift based on our society and what is happening in culture. For example, the Lububus are a perfect example. No one had a Lububu a year ago. And now they're hanging on our purses, they're in our cars, they're on our mics if we do content, like they're just everywhere. Yet, to be the devil's advocate for a second and switch over a bit to the other side, anything and everything can be considered timeless if we just put the intention to have it be that. We can try to take care of things for the rest of our lives, for example, our wardrobe. And that in itself could be like a timeless practice. It could be passed on by generation through generation. But timelessness has been warped in a lot of ways by consumerism, by brands within this capitalistic economic time that we're in. And so I do feel like when brands sell us like timeless fashion collections, I do want to say that I think they benefit when they choose the word quote unquote timeless, so they don't even have to like make new collections, and that way they're like, oh, we're sustainable, but yet they sell us things like these collections, these classic collections or these timeless collections without really knowing anything about us. Like they don't know our culture, they don't know our personal history, they don't really know anything about us. I feel like this just ends up giving them like a self-appointed power to define fashion on our behalf, while making it seem like they're doing us a favor. And I do want to go on the emotional angle here because I have been very logical with my reasoning. I have seen some research where critics say that fashion is mostly driven by emotions, that the pieces that we now are in reverence to often are memorable because of just the way it makes us feel, of the ability it empowers us, the ability to make us feel something, to feel sexy, to feel cute, to feel modest or cozy, whatever it may be. And I think it can symbolize a lot of different things. Like, for example, how Chanel used to reject restrictive silhouettes in her collections, and that just became her whole thing. And then when people wore her dresses or her items, they felt that sense of rebellion, that sense of rejecting the standard norms. And another example is Diane von Württemberg. I don't know how to say her last name, but she had a wrap dress that basically celebrated women's freedom. And then there's the Saint Laurent tuxedo, and then there's other jackets, like the Mugler jacket, that basically transformed the body and made them feel powerful or be powerful. So obviously, clothing is not only the thoughts that you put into it, not only the emotions that you feel in it, but also what it's accomplishing in society. So for young designers, I often question whether it's trickier to aim to create timeless classic pieces or fast fashion, because I feel there's a lot of creativity that is needed to make your own collections, and the angles that you put into your collections now really does matter as more Gen Z become aware of the issues in the world and have a lot of eco-anxiety and are increasingly supporting vintage fashion. So I do think that young fashion designers have a lot to do in terms of defining what timelessness is and how they want to grasp their identity and their self within the world and how that impacts others. So for example, Stella McCartney has been considered the champion of luxury and has really understood this concept of timeless and sustainable fashion at the same time. And even ex-Vogue editor-in-chief Anna Wintour explained that it was impossible for fashion to think about luxury and sustainability in the same sentence before Stella changed the situation. Meaning that McCartney didn't sacrifice luxury for a more conscious idea of fashion and still managed to have some sort of quality and craftsmanship in her collections. And there's been theories that product aesthetics can shape more sustainable consumption of fashion items, like something as simple as symmetry. Meaning that they're crediting that symmetry, something that is symmetrical, can drive longer product usage and basically give brands a path to combine beauty and responsibility. Even if durability is not the first thing people think about when they're making a purchase, they think that the symmetry theory is going to be enough, or even just like a key element of making something timeless. But the symmetry theory is like the theory of beauty because it's based on like how you look. Like, for example, if you've ever heard of the beauty theory, it's just like how symmetrical your face is, basically. And we tend to trust those with more symmetrical faces. We tend to trust those that are more attractive. And then we just place them on a pedestal for no reason, even when there's no logical basis, even when it doesn't make sense. It's just because their features are balanced. And I just can't help to think now, like, what even is a symmetrical closet? You know, like, what even is that? Because if you apply the symmetrical theory to fashion, it kind of assumes that humans are conditioned to respond to like balance and harmony. But when I think about symmetry in clothing, I don't really think about mirrored colors or like the minimalism that a lot of people expect us to follow if we care about sustainable fashion. I do think there's an assumption that symmetry is like black and white items in our closet, but the trouble for me is that I'm a maximalist who likes a lot of colors. I like patterns and interesting cuts that no one else has. Like, how would a sustainable, timeless closet really look like? Is something that I'm kind of questioning. And I wonder, like, how would that look like for you specifically? Because everyone has a different identity and different style too. And would a symmetrical closet mean like we have to only have one of everything? Because I have like 500 sweaters, I have like 5 pairs of jeans. So like, I think the balance and the quantity itself is like really off. I don't know. Maybe I'm derailing a bit. Maybe I'm going on a bit of a tangent here about symmetrics. But I don't know. I feel like the true symmetry in the fashion industry is like when we have an equilibrium. I cannot say that word. Equilibrium between aesthetics, between durability and sustainability, and the way not only that we dress, but how we produce clothing and how we like take care of it after we don't want it. Yeah, there's been a lot of recent trends, and sadly, like a lot of the new trends that are coming out are asymmetrical fits. Have you guys seen those asymmetrical cuts? Like, that does not bode well for the symmetrical theory that we've been going on into. And so yeah, I would hate to see that asymmetrical trend end up in the landfill and just cause more problems to us, the people living on this earth that is literally dying because of our, problems. I do want to note that if we do end up buying pieces that are labeled as quote unquote timeless, it can send a message to us and to others into the world that we can buy our way into sustainability, as if purchasing a so-called timeless coat or dress can suddenly make us like a conscious consumer. But in reality, it's just perpetuating the same cycles of consumption. And I do think it assumes a lot of who we should be, that we should only like minimalist colors, that we should only like balanced silhouettes, that we should only like certain standards of beauty that are being set by Eurocentric ideals. Yeah, I genuinely want timelessness, if that exists at all, to be like colorful and messy and natural, just like our Earth, just like our planet. So yeah, I really do wish though too in another world, maybe I'm going on a whole other tangent, but I think it's related, because when brands sell us these timeless collections, often enough, like they don't even know the sizing of our bodies. Like, it's not tailored to us. I think in an ideal sustainable fashion world, all items are tailored to our body. I feel like that could really stop people from throwing things away. Like, I literally just grabbed jeans, like really great jeans, out of the dumpster, and that cost money. Like, those jeans cost like $40. We had to get in a car, go to the store, buy them, and then take care of them, and then we just throw them away like they meant nothing. So if we had like the exact measurements of our body and brands made the clothing for our body and our needs were taken care of, I don't think we'd be so open to throwing our stuff out into the dumpster. Right now, we're at a point where a lot of sustainable fashion brands just create standardized pieces and then they just market it to their ideal demographic. So like usually it's, westernized people who have disposable income, who are like from 25 to 50 years old, or upper middle class, and care about the earth and sustainability. That's like the sustainable fashion consumer. But I feel like a lot more people, everyone is concerned about the earth, or ideally I would hope so. The point is, like, every brand is predicting like what we will like, what we'll buy, and what we're willing to spend our money on. And so they just kind of push out these items and they just hope that it's going to resonate with you on a personal basis, but then also hope that you keep buying from them, even though their whole thing is don't buy and buy and buy if they're a sustainable fashion brand. I feel like there's a depersonalization, no matter if it's a sustainable brand or a fashion brand, based on how it's made for like general consumption. And so this impersonalization just kind of makes me further question consumerism. It makes me want to consider Secondhand September as a real solution to all of this, because I do think that we need to thrift even more than ever before, and then just kind of like mend or tailor the items ourselves to meet that need of like having the clothing work for us. All I want to say, like, if I'm going to preach anything about Secondhand September, is like to slow down consumption. Like, we don't need to buy from these brands that are selling us like quote unquote timeless collections. We don't need to buy new. Like, we always have an option to make a choice in our lives, and I think the choice can always be secondhand. There's accessibility concerns with that statement. Obviously, like, I know a lot of people online are like, well, it's not that easy, not that easy to like go to a thrift store. But that's on you to decide how you want to accomplish that. Not to be an American individualist here, but I feel like there can always be creative and fun ideas to buy secondhand. It's just every circumstance is going to look different. But I have bought fast fashion in the past, so if that's something that you need to do, villainize just the lack of accessibility for secondhand fashion. And I do want to say that, how do we control consumerism at the end of the day, in midst of all these narratives, in midst of all the stories that people are constantly, selling us? Because at the end of the day, like, when I talk about theories of fashion, especially like timeless fashion, I'm kind of grappling with capitalism. I'm grappling with what they're telling us is real and what they're telling us is beautiful and what we need to shop for and what we need to look for in fashion. It kind of reminds me of how a lot of people have said that there's like no ethical consumption under our current economic system of capitalism, but I feel like they're just alluding to the sense that nothing can be like morally right or wrong under our current system. That no one can do the right choice, which is so sad. It's so sad to think that way, to like be so completely like done with our society that they're like, well, if I can't make the right choice, then I'm not going to do anything at all. I think it's an excuse. I think that there can be ethical consumption under capitalism, but consumption doesn't have to mean like trading $1 for an item. I think consumption can look and seem like a lot of different things. So consumption can mean like swapping items. Ethics can mean so many different things. Ethics does not have to be black and white. It doesn't have to be a yes or no. It's not that like straightforward. We as people are always entrenched in morals and ethics. I don't believe that we can't have ethics under capitalism, because we're already living in ethics, and consumption can look like a lot of different things. It's just sometimes we assume consumption means a certain thing. But again, a lot of people don't think that they can do the right thing or like a moral choice in midst of so much corruption, in midst of so much exploitation and loopholes. And personally, I think that we can always do the right thing. We can always take up responsibility to preserve the garments that we have, to keep things safe, to care about the world. And this will always go beyond brands. It will go beyond capitalism. It will go beyond money. And I do want to note that we still think that we can like hold on to something and have it never change. And I feel like that's a sense of control that we want over our style, over our closets, over our impact on the fashion industry. but we never really know where things are going to go. We don't know the value it's going to have in the future. I don't think that the future is ever predictable, and we can't really know what's going to happen in our culture, in our society. Objective standards will always exist, and subjective standards will always exist. They will coexist, and I don't think there's any like universal rule that makes one garment eternal while the other one just becomes obsolete. So what it comes down to is like the stories that we just end up telling and believing. So within the time of Secondhand September, I truly recommend that we further understand what we believe is reality and the stories that we attach to our clothing. So these stories can include the way a jacket reminds us of a first job interview, or how that one dress like carries the memory of a family celebration. Like, these are personal associations, obviously, you know, like they give a garment a sense of like permanence, and hopefully you don't throw them away given these memories. And no brand can give us those memories. No company can sell us our life. But yeah, so how do we go from here? I want to say like this podcast is a way to share my brain, my tangents. And so within Secondhand September, I hope to see more people share their messy, imperfect, but real journey in fashion. And hopefully they navigate secondhand shopping. I remember I had a friend who had never gone thrifting, and she asked if she could go to a thrift store with me. And it was one of the last days of my senior year in college. And I remember I had a lot of miscellaneous meetings, and I was just so over it. And I skipped the meeting because I just thought it was more important to meet up with my friend who wanted to thrift for the first time. And so we jumped in her car, not on the car, and we went to the local Goodwill. And I did a whole rundown of like how to shop secondhand. And then I missed the meeting with my English professor who helped me launch my Latinx poetry club in college, which it was a douchey move reflecting back, but you know, I can never pass up helping someone learn how to secondhand shop. And I think it's fun, like if we have someone there to like guide us through the store and guide us in like knowing what to find and how to find it, and like just the whole culture of secondhand fashion being new to someone is like what I live for. Like, I will always want to like be the person that turns someone into a secondhand shopper, because it's scary. Like, if you've never thrifted, if you've never worn anything secondhand, you're kind of going in blind. So I love being that person that can like guide people through. So with the Secondhand September month, like hopefully more people like take up the challenge. I wish I was there with them. But yeah, it's more than just shopping though. It's like raising awareness of the benefits of secondhand shopping. It's reusing items, it's recycling things that we no longer need. So just encouraging more donations, more donating, and buying from thrift stores if we actually really need something within the month. And it's just encouraging everyone to like think about circularity a bit more, and like not accepting that products will just end up in the landfill. So yeah, I just kind of hope that our collective mindset can just keep evolving and growing away from like disposable consumerism, and just have a culture where like our choices really do contribute to like reducing waste and supporting a cleaner environment, and just reminding us that our smallest actions are meaningful, and that we can really create community around impactful, purposeful things. There is a lot of like frameworks that can help us think about Secondhand September. So a lot of people say that we should care about sustainability first and foremost, which means that we should be sourcing materials that are secondhand if we're ever going to make something, just to basically minimize, you know, that environmental impact and just prioritize the long-term ecological well-being of our planet. And then again, like if you want to center a framework, it's like community first within this month. Like try to build a strong, you know, supportive network of people who are working together for a common goal. I feel like when we work as a collective, we're more likely to learn from each other and work better. So there's going to be just like naturally more knowledge, more resources, like more encouragement. So you're not going to feel as lonely within the process. And then some other key like principles or frameworks that you can follow within the month is like transparency and trust. So basically just reminding us a relationship should be grounded in honesty and in openness, so that integrity of this like month can really happen. And so accountability can also emerge within our actions. And then also another thing is empowerment through action. So this is an idea that's not abstract. It's more so like we really do need tools. We need resources. We need support to really make intentional choices happen, to reduce waste. We can really feel like we have more power over the industry or over our lives when we actually really like take action. There's also like inclusivity. Like we always have to be inclusive. Like we should always welcome everyone in this process. That's why I like podcasts, because I'm talking to anyone and everyone who wants to listen. No matter your background, no matter your resources, like I really do hope that everyone wants to be part of a more responsible life, that they want to live more sustainably. And lastly, the pillar that I found can be really helpful for Secondhand September is continuous learning. The movement of sustainable fashion, of fashion in general, is always evolving. It's always seeking ways to improve, to adapt, and to respond and to change for both our planet and the people on it. Also, we always have to constantly learn from our communities. Sustainability is not static. It's not something that just like stays a certain way. So I do think that to have meaningful progress within sustainability and sustainable fashion and Secondhand September, and just like understanding fashion will really like require just like more curiosity, asking more questions, being more reflective, and just willing to grow alongside the challenges that we face. That sounded very professional, but yeah, those are like some key ways that I'm kind of like thinking about this month. Yeah, you should definitely take the pledge. There is like no formal place to sign, I guess, the pledge for Secondhand September, but it's basically like a commitment to like not buy anything new, to like buy secondhand, showcase your knowledge on sustainability, and to just kind of inspire and motivate yourself and others to like care about these things. Hopefully you make the commitment. That would be great. I also want to note before I close off the podcast that style has a lot to do with how we consume. So if you have a very unique style, I do think it's going to be harder to find those things secondhand, and they just may be easier to buy from certain brands, or just Google what you already like and buy it from wherever it's accessible. Like some great platforms that I love is Depop, Vinted, eBay, and Etsy. So you can definitely check those sites out, and they have a bunch of like resellers basically there that are like willing to like give you decent deals for like very vintage items. I also want to note that with Secondhand September, I feel like it's ultimately challenging overconsumption though. Like just because you have time to like go thrifting or to like scroll, basically, it doesn't do us any good if we're over consuming. So like instead of like just shopping, like find things that you'll actually love. Visit your closet and be like, okay, like I'm missing a jacket today, or I'm missing a sweater that I really need. I think that'd be a really strong route in approaching consumerism. But you can always like do a clothing swap. I will try to host a clothing swap soon, and you can host this with friends. It can be a free thing, a fun thing, and it's such a great way to like refresh your wardrobe. And it's like a party. People come in, they bring the clothes they no longer want, and then you take the things that they no longer want. So like you find cool new things that were basically like brought in because they're ready to be thrown out. So you saved something from the landfill, like you saved something from being thrown away, which is such a great feeling. And it's all free. Like you have literally spent no money. You have spent no money in the process. And honestly, learning how to properly care for your clothing is one of the most powerful ways to extend the life of your items. And it just takes time, and I know not everyone has that time, but it can really help you understand your clothing, the fabric, the construction of it, and you're literally investing in your wardrobe when you do this. It reduces the need to buy new items as well, and I feel like it just nurtures a more deeper appreciation for the things that we already own. And it will take a bit of practice. We'll have to read the care labels on there. We'll have to understand like the symbols and instructions. We'll have to like make sure we're washing it right. So everything is like circumstantial, like everything is different, obviously. So just kind of see like what you can do to take care of your items, to clean them, to repair them, and step out of your comfort level. I think it's very easy to stay within somewhere or something that makes you comfortable. If you don't really know how to mend, but you still want your things to be taken care of, you can always go to a tailor. Those small actions really do add up, and I think in the long run it can really just make a really cool wardrobe that works for you. So I'm going to bring the conversation about Secondhand September to a close and bring the myth of timeless fashion to a close. And I just want to leave you with this reflection. Fashion is never just about the garment itself. It's never about the labels itself. It's never about the trends itself. It's about the stories that we carry, the memories that we attach to our clothing, the expression of identity that we show the world, and the choices we make every single day. And I think brands will continue to sell us the idea that certain pieces are like timeless, essential, or like a guaranteed investment. But I feel like the true measure of timelessness comes from care, comes from attention, and personal meaning. So if you're going to be participating in Secondhand September, please let me know. Explain how you're participating so I can get a couple of clues and tips as well, because I will always need the help. And then I do think that we just have to remind ourselves that we're all learning and our worth is not dictated by price tags, and we don't have to listen to marketing campaigns. We don't have to do what everyone else is doing, and we can continue on in a life centered around connection, care, and creativity. Someone else wants to say something. The birds are talking. They're like, yes, we agree. But yeah, the choice to how we live our lives is our own. And I think fashion is part of how we see ourselves and how we navigate the world. So every thoughtful decision can mean something and should mean something. Even the smallest actions will add up. Hopefully you love your secondhand jacket. Hopefully you mend that beloved dress. Hopefully you honor more memories within the clothing that you have. Yeah, hopefully you feel like you have a lasting impact in your community and within your life. Peace and love. Ellie, bye.